Margot wanted answers about her mother, but she should have let sleeping dog slumber. In trying to find the answers that she seeked, she let out a painful shriek. On this farm things seem amish, and at night there's an evil pitch. This family has a plan of attack because they made an evil pact. Margot should have thought twice, for this is not an Amish paradise. And now everybody's fried because it's not an Amish paradise. Paranormal Activity Next of Kin is a Paramount Plus original, and yes, is the 7th movie in the Paranormal Activity franchise, universe, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I actually own all the Paranormal Activity movies, and I gotta admit, it's a guilty pleasure series of mine. Yes, seriously, all of them. Paranormal Activity 1 and 2, Electric Boogaloo. And yes, even 3. 3 was pretty good. 4, well, okay, 4 was where things started to go a bit south. The marked ones, and there's a bit of a tie for the marked ones here as far as people involved, and in the Ghost Dimension, and one hardly needs to go on about that at that point. You would have thought the Ghost Dimension would have pretty much finished off any hope for the Paranormal Activity franchise being revived, because the Ghost Dimension was kind of absolutely shit. Now, depending on how you felt about the PA movies, I'm just going to call them that because Paranormal Activity, honestly, it's lost all fucking meaning because I said about 80 million times in the first minute and a half. The PA movies are hit and miss to a lot of people. They kind of revived the found footage thing as a found footage genre, especially in the US, was starting to go down. And again, uneven as it is, but I enjoy them and they are guilty pleasures. So I was interested to see what they were going to do with a 7th movie, even though I wrote down who asked for this, really, who thought this was a good idea. Wasn't the Ghost Dimension bad enough? Now, I will say that this is better than the Ghost Dimension, but I've shat things out that were better than the Ghost Dimension, and I was very disappointed by that. And this, franchise has laid dormant ever since then. Now, it was supposed to come out sometime last year, I believe, but because of the pandemic, which they reference in this movie, it got shelved a bit. Now, it was produced by Jason Blum, or Bloom, I forget how to pronounce that, and Oren Peli, who also was the director of the first movie. And there's a lot of ties to the various movies, like the writer, Christopher Landon, who also directed Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, which wasn't bad. I'm not saying it was great. It kind of tied very fucking loosely into the first one. Boy, did it fucking end even the second one. And it was a bit messy, was kind of cool, and it kind of got to the point where the movie was just going back in on itself. But overall, I thought it was pretty decent, and then again, the Ghost Dimension was just absolute dog shit. So Christopher Landon wrote Paranormal Activity 2, 3, 4, The Marked Ones, Happy Death Day to You, and Freaky. So at least he didn't write the first one. He also didn't write the Ghost Dimension. I want to pretend the Ghost Dimension never actually happened because it was a neat little idea, but there was no blood in that turnip by that point. It was directed by William Eubank. No, not Kevin Eubank of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. The man that directed Underwater, which was an underappreciated movie that sat on the shelf for a few years and was released and was really goddamn good. And considering that I have an unhealthy fear of drowning, that's why I never go swimming, and I'm claustrophobic, that movie actually kind of got to me. And while it wasn't great, it at least had atmosphere, ironically, considering it was underwater, and it was pretty good. So, this wasn't doomed to fail. Here's a big thing, though. Attaching the Paranormal Activity, label to it is a double-edged sword. You're going to get more attention because there are going to be fans, for good, bad, or indifferent of the franchise are going to be like, okay, I'll check that out. I have a Paramount Plus subscription, so I'll check that out. And then you're also going to set a level of expectations. Had this movie not been called Paranormal Activity, it might have had a better chance to succeed. That being said, it wasn't bad. It just was almost unnecessary. So you're kind of left with a movie that has really no right to exist and also has characters that are just monumentally stupid, as is tradition with the PA movies. Those are the main character of Margot, Emily Bader, or Batter, however you want to say it. Maybe she licks the beaters. Get the tongue stuck in there. And she has her cameraman slash boyfriend slash whatever, platonic friend, I have no idea, Chris, played by Roland Buck III. And then there's Dale, not Dale, Dan Lippert. And then they are a crew of, 3 people that go to this particular Amish community. The Amish community because Margot's trying to find out answers about her past. Because back in 97, when she was a newborn, she was dropped on basically the doorstep of the hospital by her mother. And she has no idea why. She's trying to find out why. And it turns out that she was able to find that her mother used to live in an Amish community in the middle of wherever the fuck this is, USA, where seemingly the seasons change like crazy because bing, there's snow, then there's not, then there is snow, and it's kind of funny. Because there is one day, seemingly, it's like maybe they just shot this thing out of fucking sequence. There's one day where it looks like it's about 65 and all the snow's gone. Literally the day after, there was probably about a foot of snow on the ground. So, I'll get into spoilers here in a little bit, but Margot takes, her friends with her. They drive out there, and naturally shit starts to go south as she finds out more about this stuff. The Amish community people are not necessarily that receptive. I mean, some are, because her one of her relatives, Sam, who made the pants too long and also decided to contact her, is like, hey, come on back. It's kind of like we're going Midsummer here. And you know how the whole thing with Midsummer went with the tour. You can probably guess where this is going. Nobody ends up in a bear suit, I will say that, but there are other animals in this. And Margot's trying to find out answers. And some people are receptive. There's the old man, Jacob, who is her grandfather, seemingly by de facto. I mean, some of the relations are a little bit weird. And everybody is a little bit uneasy because obviously this is a very old farm, a very old place, and there's some kind of sinister undertone. Obviously, otherwise it would not be called Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. Kind of a bit of a spoiler right there, so you can probably guess where this fucking thing's going. But here's the twist. There's at least some atmosphere with this. I will say that much. Which, the only way they could not have atmosphere in a Paranormal Activity movie is to set up on Mars, which they may inevitably do, because every horror franchise goes to space eventually when they run out of ideas. Jason, and I'm amazed Freddy has not gone to space. I mean, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake in 2010 sent up into space where it's never going to fucking come down because that was shit. But, so it's documentary style, found footage, that kind of stuff. And in March of 2021, they do reference a pandemic and stuff like that. People are wearing masks. Okay, cool. They're setting in real time. That's fine. And once they get to the farm, Sam, because he made the pants too long and also because he went on a sojourn, I guess you're allowed to go out, for a number of days, possibly up to a year, to experience the world and then come back to the community. And he can't convince Jacob to basically let everybody stay. Well, then after a certain series of events, they end up staying there, but since they have no electricity, wink, wink, they can't charge their stuff, and they have a whole bunch of batteries and ways to charge the stuff on a generator that's in the van. But as things start to go south, they hear growling, they hear weird bumps in the night, they see weird lights in the distance. They find a church out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, a mile away from the community. They're wondering what the fuck's going on, and a lot of people seem to live there. More people than you would think, considering that the place is only, about 4 houses. But they're finding this stuff, and naturally they do a whole bunch of stupid shit, like investigate stuff that they shouldn't be fucking investigating, because, as is tradition, if you don't do stupid shit in a Paranormal Activity movie, you're not going to be able to get anywhere in life. And the nice thing about this is some of the characters are a little bit smarter, like, nope, I'm not going to go in there. One is like, no, I want to go in there. I want to see what's going on here, because there's some weird, goofy shit going on, and maybe these people, if they're my family, maybe they can tell me what happened to my mom, but I got to find out these answers. I got to do this shit. And it just gets to the point where it gets fucking ridiculous and fucking, just bafflingly funny. It gets to the point where it's just, hilarious. But it doesn't insult your intelligence. It's just also kind of there at the same time. This treads familiar ground. It doesn't do anything necessarily new, but since it has laid dormant for a number of years, you wonder what kind of ties it has back to the previous series. Does it reference Toby? Do they have Katie in this? They do not. Katie was fucking gorgeous, by the way. I mean, still is. But they don't have her in. They're trying to create a whole new timeline and everything. Kind of like a spin-off, kind of like the Marked Ones did. Even though the Marked Ones, again, did tie back into the first and second movie. Maybe they're trying to spin off a whole thing. And maybe they're trying to set up a sequel. Who knows? Overall, the movie has the usual bumps in the night. It does have a few jolts. And does have the, the drop in music. And then boom, that kind of stuff. It does trade out the idea of just a house with a couple people for a community, so there could be more chances for bad characters, good characters, characters in between, Sam making the pants too long, more chances for bodies to pile up, and there's obviously an evil undertone, because otherwise, why the hell would, Margot suddenly be back there, and why would certain characters say certain things to her that were, kind of a little bit jarring that you wouldn't say to a normal person. Maybe there's a reason why she was brought back. Maybe there's a reason why they were all brought back. Maybe it was like that VHS tape where you're all going to die out here. Wait, no, not that. It's like the Resident Evil program. No, it's not like that. You're all going to die down here. Overall, the movie ends up having no right to exist, but doesn't end up being that bad. It has enough to it and does set a few things up nicely where you're like, okay, it wasn't all that bad. Now I'm going to get into spoilers. This will not take very long. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. Okay. So again, being a fan of the Paranormal Activity movies, this ranks above the Ghost Dimension. It ranks a bit above the marked ones in all honesty, because it tries to stand alone. And I would say it ranks below 3. So it's right about there in the middle. So Margot ends up finding out that her, what these ties were and what happened and why her mother did what she did. Basically, they try to kind of hodgepodge a few things in. This guy Dale, he tries to ingratiate himself with the community and have a whole bunch of fun, stuff like that. But people go poking their noses where they shouldn't. This church where it says, so far, no further. You don't want to go in a church, especially that's in the middle of nowhere, that doesn't happen to have any altars and stuff like that. And why would you go in there? And why would you keep doing this stuff? And why would you do all this stupid shit? So, Margot finds out more answers. It turns out that her mother gave her away, basically, and was shunned from the community. And because she was shunned from the community, naturally, there was going to be something that was going to happen. It's a cultist, life. It's a cultist life for us. It's an Amish life for us. So they find out, everybody finds out until people start dying, because everybody dies in movies like this. Margot and Chris and Dale find out that, there's some evil cultists here, and her and Chris get into the church, and they go down into this area, and they find this frickin', just tunnel that goes down and down and down forever, and there's these weird noises, this weird growling. Well, what the hell? Well, earlier they saw some goats being killed and sacrificed, like a 2-headed goat, because something's starting to happen. It's starting to spread, they say. And earlier in the movie, she found a bunch of weird drawings in her mom's old room and found some weird clothes and stuff like that. Stuff that seemingly was never moved. Like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? What was going on with my mom? Well, the bottom line is what ends up happening is the women are basically used to house this demon and house this entity. And if they don't do it, the demon can then possess anybody, kind of like Jason from Jason Goes to Hell. Remember that? Remember when they decided to do that? Well, here they do it. They just don't use a weird dagger. I mean, at least not until the 8th movie. For there will be an 8th movie. So Dale ends up dying because they end up down in the frickin' area after Margot had gotten possessed and was going to get sacrificed and all this to house the demon and keep this thing and keep the community safe. And then what ends up happening is Jacob actually ends up getting pushed down at one point. He ends up going to, just splattering all over the place. And the demon's suddenly there. And the demon tries to get free. It wants to break free. But it's caught in the chain. Because it's not off the chain yet. But it will be soon. And Chris and Margot escape. Dale helps him. Dale ends up getting killed by the fucking demon because snow's just falling over the goddamn place. And he has the van keys. That's important for a little bit later. They escape into this barn that has a whole bunch of cattle, and the demon chases them, seemingly not killing the cattle, doesn't want to eat, doesn't want to do anything. Hey, who's this demon? It turns out it's the mother. It's the mother. She's twisted around, all this stuff. She kind of looks like Gollum in the few shots that they show. And that's really about it there. Margot and Chris managed to escape. And because this whole thing went south and the demon ended up getting thrown into the thresher and ended up getting killed, now that vessel is destroyed, but the demon can get out. And everybody goes wild and starts killing each other. And it looked like it would have been really goddamn cool, but they couldn't afford to show much. One guy's on fire. One person has an axe already in him. And people are trying to bash the windows and stuff like that. They get the keys from Dale's corpse and they vanish. They vanish into the night. But then Sam, because his pants were literally so goddamn long, they were almost up to his fucking nipples, right here, ow, he ends up, being possessed by the demon, and he is going to go after them, because he is going to carry out this demonic pact, because why the fuck not? So he kills a couple cops, makes them actually turn guns on themselves, shoot themselves, and then he takes the cop car and travels. And this is right after Margot's laughing, ha 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 ha, we got away. Sure, one of our friends got his head torn off and our possessions are all taken care of and we're going to have to go get new licenses, credit cards, and all that stuff. But that's okay. We got away from this weird cult. And then they play a Loretta Lynn song on the radio as we, basically just watch Sam with his very, very long pants travel, shirtless, by the way, in a cop car through a snowstorm chasing after them. So naturally, we're going to get an 8th movie. And I can only imagine that they're probably going to do one, and they might as well. I mean, might as well continue this and see if we're going to get anything. But what's the name of the demon? Who the hell knows? I mean, maybe it was Toby. Maybe Toby was just sleeping there and was like, okay, fine, I'm up, possessed. Rah. So yeah, Paranormal Activity, all these. Hi, I can do this stuff. This was actually a pretty good franchise. I'm not saying this one was bad. C+. I mean, it was entertaining enough. I didn't hate it, but it's not necessarily something I'm going to say, yeah, you need to absolutely go out of your way to see it. If you have a Paramount Plus subscription, do see it, because there are worse things you can endure. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.